The Autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr. is not a conventional autobiography. Instead, it was meticulously compiled by historian Claiborne Carson from King's writings and speeches. In Carson's introduction, he explains the editorial choices he made to create a coherent narrative from the source material. The book begins with King's account of his early life, starting with his birth in Atlanta in the 1920s. Growing up in a relatively prosperous Black community with loving parents, King's childhood and adolescence were mostly happy. Although deeply religious, he grappled with the biblical mandate to love even those who wronged him, particularly when faced with hateful white racists. However, King found that his religious beliefs and his opposition to segregation were fundamentally interconnected. As he explored philosophy and theology during his college years, he realized that fighting for freedom and equality was a Christian duty. His studies at a seminary further reinforced this belief, and he drew inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi's nonviolent resistance, which would significantly shape King's political philosophy throughout his life. Continuing his studies at Boston University, King delved deeper into the intersection of religion and philosophy, questioning ways to achieve social justice through love and faith. Eventually, he earned his Ph.D. During his time in Boston, King met Coretta Scott, a fellow activist for social justice, whom he later married. The couple would have 4 children together. Although they often lived apart initially, King's appointment as a pastor in Montgomery, Alabama brought them closer. In Montgomery, he became a prominent figure in the religious community and played an active role in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. It was King who first heard about Rosa Parks' arrest for refusing to give up her bus seat to a white person, and he played a pivotal role in organizing the subsequent bus boycott. The boycott gained momentum rapidly, propelling King to increasing prominence. As King's fame grew, so did the threats to his safety. He faced death threats, arrests by racist police officers, and even a bombing of his house. However, King remained committed to nonviolent resistance and managed to inspire his community to do the same, despite mounting anger and calls for retaliation. As large-scale nonviolent activism continued, the police responded with mass arrests targeting the Black community, and King himself was arrested. Nevertheless, in 1956, the protest succeeded, leading to the desegregation of buses. Encouraged by this achievement, the civil rights movement expanded. Along with King's recognition and experience, he traveled to Ghana to witness the fight against British rule, and later visited India to observe the ongoing legacy of Gandhi. Despite continued efforts by white supremacists to silence him through arrests, threats, and violence, Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement persisted and grew in strength. The iconic March on Washington in 1963, where King delivered his legendary "I Have a Dream" speech, drew 250,000 people, including allies from white churches and unions. However, white supremacist violence persisted, with frequent racist acts, police brutality, and the murder of Black children. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, and King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, marking significant milestones for the movement. Yet, the struggle was far from over. Black communities became divided on the strategies and means to achieve victory. While King advocated for nonviolence, leaders like Malcolm X and others believed in the necessity of violent responses and retaliation. Although they disagreed on tactics, King mourned the tragic assassination of Malcolm X. Amid internal conflicts and ongoing white supremacist violence, the civil rights movement achieved another milestone. With the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, securing voting rights for racial minorities, King then focused on addressing economic racism, segregated schools, and other forms of discrimination in poverty-stricken areas of Los Angeles and Chicago. Riots erupted in response to the desperation and provocative violence of racist whites. While advocating nonviolence, King faced opposition in his efforts to secure livable housing in Chicago for the impoverished communities. Despite the emergence of factions like the Black Panthers and the growing Black Power movement, which advocated for retaliatory force, King remained committed to nonviolence. He also became a prominent critic of the Vietnam War. Despite facing heavy criticism himself, King continued to reject violence and tirelessly fought for social justice until his assassination on April 4, 1968. The book concludes with a collection of King's writings and speeches that highlight his unwavering dedication to social justice and his belief that he would be remembered for his commitment to fulfilling his Christian duty by advocating for justice and fighting for the rights of the oppressed.